I'm your friend and host, Kirsi, and this is another episode of The Pod. On this episode, our guest is an industrial engineer, holder of an MBA, who has crossed borders to lead and sustain teams during times of sunshine and crisis at companies like Facebook and Uber. Hi, Alonso. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Kirsty. I'm delighted to be here. It's a pleasure to speak to you, and welcome to Dublin.
Thank you. After listening to myself, give such an introduction, I can't help but wonder what would be your elevator pitch if you were introducing yourself?
Well, of course, it depends on the audience that I'm introducing myself to, but I like to describe myself as an optimistic thinker and someone that's always searching for ways to improve, whether that's a routine, a process, or anything that you're looking at. And I like to think that I'm doing this always based on purpose and listening to my heart as much as I can. Um, the other thing I would say is that I have decades of experience trying to learn how to do things better, sometimes through making mistakes, and very regularly through unexpected situations and somewhat big changes. Someone that can give things another shot if they don't go well for the first time.
I love that. And you seem to be a person who is tuned into his heart and intuition. And I'd like to begin our chat today with a simple question. What are you most grateful for from your time in Dublin?
Oh, wow. There's so much to be thankful for. I think first and foremost, it's about the people. Uh, People I've met, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Somehow it just feels that interactions in this place are never transactional. And I really love the opportunity that I've been given to see things differently through the eyes of a different culture that's definitely not very similar to my own. Um, just the joy of living in this diverse city, in terms of places to see, people that you meet, the food that you can find, and the experiences that you can live. And for of course, a big one for me, coming here gave my kids the opportunity to grow up in a different way than I did, which I think ultimately will help them be more inclusive, be more compassionate, and hopefully have a broader perspective on life, which I also hope will help them be people with a good heart.
Mm, that's so sweet. I love that. And I can relate to your experience. I've been here for a bit now, and I have been welcomed since I was in customs with a smile and curiosity. And I don't think that's something that people perhaps hear a lot about these places. And I don't know what's the common narrative, but I feel exactly the same way as you have. Everywhere I've been to, people have always been keen to be helpful and always heart open, showing their hearts wide open and trying to be helpful. So I love that you have had such a positive experience so far away from home. And speaking of which, while preparing for this chat, I wanted to picture what was your childhood like. And luckily you're here with us today and can elaborate with that on that because I'm not gonna settle with the Google response of that. I'm also Costa Rican and some of my formative years I've spent in Irelia. I hear that you grew up in Santo Domingo. I'm curious, for those who aren't familiar with Costa Rica, how would you describe growing up there?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit about that. I think I spent most of my formative years splitting my time between Heredia, which is where I lived, and San Jose, which is where I went to school for many, many years. I had the privilege of growing up in a time in when I could run outside with my friends, ride a bike, ride my skateboard, get in a bit of trouble, and play games outside without worries of safety or anything like that. I did spend my time inside, uh, playing with computers, video games, and being curious about the cable, the internet, and anything that I could get my hands on. um, I think growing up, I always had my family close. And it's not only my parents and my sister, but my grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins from both sides of the family were usually around, which made this feeling of a family stronger on both my dad's and my mom's side. Um, my parents were quite amazing. They were always supportive of me trying new things, which means I tried basketball, tennis, piano, sax lessons, even baseball, just because I lived in this town that you mentioned that used to have a diamond and a team that was actually pretty good back then. And so, in terms of childhood, for all that I can remember, I think it was a very positive one. I've also learned that there were moments where perhaps things were not always perfect and easy at home, but in spite of those challenges that I'm sure take place in any household, I still see my childhood as a very happy one.
I can see that, and I can see how growing up with a support system has, in a way, giving you the tools to go ahead and tackle whatever challenge life has thrown at you, and even have the courage to go ahead and take an opportunity that at times can be scary, can be, challenging. And before I wanted to ask you, how would you say your upbringing prepared you to take on these European adventure? Do you think it also shaped the way you lead now as a parent, for example?
Oh wow, that's an interesting one. I think in terms of the upbringing, I think growing up with curiosity, trying new things, connecting with people, and being encouraged to travel, which is something that I had, is something that definitely prepared me for this, for the past few years where I've been living here. Um, and the upbringing definitely shaped how I parent as well. I think it helped me understand a few important bits. One of them being that building trust with your kids is probably the best way to go always. The more honest and real your kids can be around you without judgment and with acceptance, the better the relationship will probably be. Um, and then, same as my parents did with me, I think encouraging kids to take risks, try new things, traveling, making mistakes, uh, is something that now I try to do much more or more intentionally with my kids, just because it gives them much greater opportunities to learn and grow and be happy in the long term.
I see that. You mentioned that the way your parents raised you really influenced your parenting style. And that leads me to another question that can only be answered by you. And I think it's going to become a regular here in our show because we try to dig into the stories of the people we have conversations here. And the reason behind the pod is introducing our larger project under the rug to a broader community. And I think that even when we're talking, oh, even when we're talking about ourselves, in our hero's journey, there's always supporting it or supporting characters to that story, and their presence of or absence would definitely change some parts of our story. So, if your life were a movie, who would you call a couple of best supporting characters to be nominated to take that award, and why?
Okay. Um, so I think I've been very lucky, and I've met a lot of great people in my life and in my career so far. Many of them have stuck around actually for, maybe 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years. There's great friends, there's mentors, you know, some previous managers, many of them just amazing. Um, I think I have to go back to my parents though, in the influence and supporting characters, just because these are the guys that have been there since day one. Truly enabling me from a young age to go after any crazy idea that I ever had. Like no questions asked, go for a dream, try something else, and if you fail, it's okay. Try something new after that. Um, so I'm gonna cheat on your question here, and I'm gonna have them both as one of the supporting characters, just because I think how they complement each other has truly shaped me.
That's
And
beautiful. I will allow that for this one time.
great. And then I'll tell you about another couple of teachers or supporting characters that I have in my life now, which are my kids. Um, I think as they move through different ages, they just come with different lessons that you're definitely supposed to learn, right? When they were babies, it was all about learning how to think about someone else. Um, and then now that they're in an older and more evolved stage and the conversations are different, it's how they remind you of who you are and where you come from. And they actually start reminding you about looking at yourself and taking care of yourself and not only doing everything for them. So I would say this is the other, supporting character pair that I would choose here, as I try to cheat a little bit around this question, and I include four people instead of two.
I love that. That's so generous of you. Speaking of support and assistance, I have to move to a more industry related topic that I simply just can't skip. And I'm going to use this opportunity to segue into that. And well, as a leader who holds an MBA, and it's basically process oriented while being so focused on the humans, I have to ask, what's your take on AI?
Okay. I think let me start by saying that I strongly believe in automation, process improvement, making things run smoother, and reducing the chance of making mistakes. Which means, by definition, I'm pro AI.
Yeah.
Um, Yet I think about AI, and I'm much more interested in how you implement AI
Mhm.
in the smartest way possible
Mhm.
for any given organization that's trying to, leap some rewards from the implementation. So it's not only about how do we use prompts and assistants or agents to answer questions or speed up something that would be done by a human, but it's about integrating AI systems into existing processes and internal systems, so that they truly speak to each other. So it's not about getting that efficiency out, but ensuring that there's quality on the output
Mhm.
and that there's not a dependency, right? It's not just for replacing what someone does for the sake of replacing it. So I think the scope of implementing AI should be in things that can truly be automated, uh, like data analysis and similar things that just can now benefit much more from the compute power that we have available, and
Mhm.
not just think, hey, we're going to cut costs by implementing AI. But it's doing it in a sustainable way, in a really intentional way, and trying to solve for problems, and not just try to throw AI at a problem and just hope that it will bring back efficiency and cost reductions in any way that's needed.
Yeah, I can agree. I can agree. I believe that we're both in different industries, but we both share a common why, which is the people. And in my personal experience, I can most definitely say that what you're giving as your output is something that I believe on, coming from the space where we see AI not as a solution, but just another revolution we have to get acquainted with. Not something that it's being made up out of thin air, but it's something that we've been building through time for a while now, and making use of all the data we've been collecting for the greater good of humanity. And that makes me think, going back to what you said, that we cannot just go ahead and expect ChatGPT to do everything for us, to be our doctor, to be your prompter, to be your executor. We still have to maintain that spark that only humans can bring about, while making use of technology in ways that definitely optimize but do not decentralize the paper of humans in our organizations.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think keeping people at the heart of everything is it's critical, and in the end is probably the true special sauce of any process, any organization. So yes, we may benefit from AI, but we need to keep it as human as possible.
Exactly. And well, I want to take advantage of this moment to say that this episode is brought to you guys by Salsa by the Sea. I'm enjoying a delicious matcha, and I'm ready to move on to the next question. So, going back to what we discussed about how would you introduce yourself and living on purpose, which is something that I deeply relate to. And I think it's been something that has been crucial to me since we first met, and it's living on purpose. I know that people will be curious about what's next for you. We talked about what you've done here, what's been your experience overall. So I want to go a bit deeper than what we can really relate in or online. And I like to ask, how do you think the rediscovery of self you've been through while living in Europe, doing the work, raising a family, is impacting the colors of these new canvas of what's next for Alonso?
Okay, well, I don't think I have a perfect plan, because there are many things that you just need to figure out as they go, and there are things that will come up unexpectedly. But in a in a much more intentional way, I'm trying to get involved in volunteering opportunities, ways to give back. I heard this term a friend used one of these days. He said, "Look into the left." So I think that's you know that all somehow groups something that I want to be doing more of. So trying to join boards in charities or foundations, and finding other creative ways of supporting organizations with purpose and social impact is something that I'm really trying to do more of. Um, I think it's related to how to leverage my experience in driving growth and improvement during the past 20 plus years, um, maybe in areas and organizations that now go beyond what I've done before and that are truly having a positive impact in the world. That's what I really want to be able to do, to to invest that knowledge in something that truly helps. And then I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but it's this other realization that life in itself can be uncertain. Things can shift. So in the same way that I moved here 7+ years ago, maybe there's something new that could come at any point. So being open to those possibilities, um, and being able to flow with them as they come is what's next as well. Just always being in that flow state, I guess, to see what comes next and what's the best next step.
I love that. In my personal experience, I find that, as you said at the beginning, making room for mistakes and allowing things to flow, it's something that at times is not so easy to learn and in a way have faith into the bigger, trust in the bigger picture or whatever you believe in. But I think that the more I allow myself to just lead and trust that, the flows better. So I'm sure that for you it's going to be that way, and whatever it's next for you, it's going to be fantastic. So, Alonso, you've been so generous. Thank you for your time today and for being such a firm believer and supporter of our cause. But before I leave you, I want to ask one final question, and that is, what would you like your legacy to be?
I've never really thought about leaving a legacy or something close to that, if I'm honest. But maybe what I can share is a little bit of what I'm doing right now or what I'm trying to do to keep moving into becoming this, you know, ongoing improving version of myself, in the hope that this is a better way to live life. Um, will it be a legacy? I don't know, but I hope it is a better way to live life. Um, so I'm trying to be present, always in whatever I'm doing. Um, I really want my heart to be into what I'm doing always, if possible, knowing that sometimes we have to do stuff that we don't necessarily
Yeah.
love. I'm trying to enjoy life more and trying to worry less. Um, so far, I've learned that everything will always be fine. Um, so trying to not lose sight of that and have faith in whatever you have faith in, that things will turn out okay, is something that I'm trying to do a lot more. And then I think reminding myself to be thankful for the experiences that have brought me where I am, stay open to whatever comes, and then also be very helpful of the people that you meet. I think most people are you run into for a reason, and so I think not losing sight of about that is something that will somehow help me be this better version. And again, I don't expect to create a legacy, but um, if anyone asks, I just want them to see, hey, this guy tried to be a little bit better, and that's what counts.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels like for me, it resonates a lot with starting with the man in the mirror, starting small, but that actually means a lot more. And just trying is something that sometimes we take for granted, but it means so much. So, Alonso, once again, thank you for your time. This was a lot of fun and it was insightful. I'm sure that people out there are thankful for everything that your life has been about, for the opportunity your parents gave you of exploring who you are and who you want to be. so you can show up in the world in the way you do and just give us all so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Kirsty, and thanks for bringing this good weather to Dublin. Let's see if it sticks around. But seriously, this is great. I love what you're doing with this pod, and I'm delighted to get a chance to participate.
Thank you. See you in the next one.